Okay guys, this is the first video of 3 and it is a guide to approaching the Government and Politics AS Level Unit 2 exam. Okay, so first of all we're going to have a look at section A and this is the shortest part of the exam and also the most straightforward in terms of how to approach it. So in terms of timing for this question, you're going to get 2 questions, both worth 6 marks. So it's not particularly complicated. 12 marks in total, and spend around 12 minutes on this question. Okay, it is important, especially if there's a question that you feel confident answering, not to get too carried away with timing, because obviously you're up against it with mini essays in the other sections. So try and be very disciplined and stick to around 6 minutes per question for this section. The good news for this one is, in terms of approaching this question, it is very straightforward. You take a point example approach and you do this 3 times for the question. So just as a general introduction, first of all, this is what this is where your approach to this type of question is. So in terms of when I say making a point, it is clearly stating a point that is directly linked to the question, addressing the question directly with a precise and accurate sentence. It can be as simple as this, okay? One method used by social movements is public protest. So in that instance, I already know that, because it's so focused on the question, that the question that this candidate is answering is describe methods used by social movements, and they've clearly stated public protest as being one of them. Alongside that, then, you write in another sentence, which is just an example, which again, you clearly stated an example that is directly related to the point made and ensuring your example is accurate and precise. So, in terms of the example made in this instance, it can be modern social movements such as Black Lives Matter have organised large mass rallies in major UK cities such as London, Bristol, Birmingham to highlight systemic racism. So, what you've done there in a very, very simple way is you've made a point and you've attached an example to it. So in terms of how you approach the whole question, you just do this 3 times. So in other words, you write in around 6 sentences. Obviously, those sentences will vary in size and length, but essentially you are doing point example, point example, point example, and that is going to structure your answer for you. Let's have a little look at the questions that came up in the summer of 2024. So you can see here, using examples, outline 3 methods used by pressure groups to exert influence. Now you'll notice here that the examiner makes a point of putting 3 in bold, okay? They're trying to guide you guys in terms of thinking about, we only need 3 methods here. And another example is, using examples, briefly describe limits to the freedom of expression. Now they don't say in that answer that you need to outline 3, but that is what you're looking to do, okay? So if we have a little look at one of these questions, let's have a look at the one about describing 3 methods used by pressure groups. Now, I will say that when I marked for this exam board during this exam season, a lot of students went off on a tangent with this one. So the question clearly says methods used by pressure groups. And I marked lots of answers that described pressure groups generally. So there are sectional and causal groups. And unfortunately, there were no marks awarded for that, because it's away from the focus of the question. The examiner is clearly asking you what methods they used. So this is where your own knowledge comes in. And if you've done a little bit of revision, then you'll know that there is a variety of methods used by pressure groups. So lobbying, strikes, immediate influence, protest, taking legal action, and also widespread public campaigns. Now, you don't have to use all of these, obviously, because the examiner has stated that you only need to outline 3. So you can pick any 3 that you want in terms of what you do in the exam, as long as there's some reasonable examples attached to it. So this is what it would look like. This is how simple this question can be. You're making a point which answers the question directly. So in this case, you're outlining one of the methods. Look how easy this can be. One method used by UK pressure groups is lobbying, where they try to influence politicians and policymakers through meetings, reports, and consultations. This allows them to present their views directly to those in power and shape policy decisions. So clearly they're outlining lobbying as one method, and there's a bit of explanation about what it is there. Then you just need a precise example of this type of lobbying. An example of this is the Confederation of British Industry, the CBI, which regularly lobbies the government on economic and business policies to promote the interest of UK businesses. It really is that simple. Okay, another one. Another common method is public demonstrations, such as protests, marches, and rallies, which help raise awareness and gain public support for a cause. These actions can put pressure on the government to make changes. For example, Extinction Rebellion has staged large-scale protests, including roadblocks and sit-ins, to demand urgent climate action from the UK government. So what you end up with is an answer that looks a little bit like this. Now, I'm not going to read through this, but I invite you to pause this video and have a little bit of a read through this answer. This is about the type of length that you're looking for this answer, and this is what you're looking to do. And when you break it down, this might be more useful. You can clearly see the distinction there between point and example. List a method and then give a clear example of that. And this example here would definitely be achieving 6 out of 6 in an exam. Let's have another quick look at the second example from the summer of 2024 then. Again, the examiner hasn't identified that you have to do 3 here, but that's what we strongly advise you do. So this is where your own knowledge comes in again, and you're thinking to yourself, and if you want to challenge yourself, maybe pause the video here and try and challenge yourself. Can you think of 3 limits to freedom of express in the UK? Expression, I should say. So these are some of them, okay? Hate speech is a limit to freedom of expression. If there is a risk of national security, defamation or libel, okay, when you're lying about someone, newspapers can get entangled in this, for example. If there's a public safety issue or incidents of indecency. So these are 5 examples here of limits to freedom of expression, and you've obviously got to pick just 3 of them. So again, we'll do this fairly quickly. You've got to state one of the limits to freedom of expression. In this case, one example of limits of freedom of expression is hate speech laws, designed to prevent speech that incites violence, discrimination, or hatred based on protected characteristics such as race, religion, gender, or sexuality. So a very, very good sentence there outlining hate speech as one limitation. Then you can come in with an example. So here, it doesn't have to be long, but look how precise this information is. For example, the Labour Party faced allegations of anti-Semitism during Jeremy Corbyn's leadership around 2015-16, I believe, leading to Equality and Human Rights Commission investigation in 2020. So what you have there is a really, really precise example. There's key names, key dates, and key information in there, which is really, really impressive. A second one, another example of limits on free speech is defamation laws to protect individuals from false statements that damage their reputation. So that's clearly outlining an example of a limit to freedom of expression. And here we have a bit of a detailed example. For example, in 2012, Plebgate scandal, as it was known, involved Conservative MP Andrew Mitchell, who sued the Sun for defamation over claims he called police officers plebs. But he lost the case as the court ruled the accusations were likely true, highlighting the challenge of proving defamation in UK politics. So once again, it's a very, very straightforward approach. Point, example, point, example, point, example. 6 minutes is not a lot of time. So as I said, in terms of how much you're writing, your answers will look a little bit like that. And I think that's a fair amount to write in 6 minutes. Obviously, giving yourselves probably about 20, 30 seconds of thinking time in the exam to come up with an answer for that. Okay, to summarize then, in terms of section A, there's a few things you have to remember, okay? There's no introduction. When I examined for this paper, I was surprised how many students from other centres were writing introductions to this. There is clearly no need for an introduction. There's no debate. There's no analysis. It's just describing. Also, there's no need for a conclusion. Again, I was surprised how many students tagged on at the end. Overall, that is clear. You don't need that at all. Okay, point, example, times 3. No judgment. The examiner is not asking you for an opinion or debate. They're just asking you to describe. No analysis, no comparison or anything like that. Nice and simple description. And finally, try and stick to that rule of providing 3 points with 3 examples. Okay, nice and easy. And this one will just come down to knowledge, guys. Okay, if you've done your revision and you know methods used by pressure groups or you know limitations to freedom of expression, then this question will be nice and easy. And the last thing, just to point you in the direction of some more support with this, you should all have a guide to the exam that has all of these structure diagrams in there. And also, this is very, very useful, I hope. You have a sample answers booklet where there's other examples of Section A. Not only is it useful to have a look at the structure, but actually it's quite useful for revision because I've answered a lot of these Section A's for you, and you never know, if you're in luck, one of them might come up in the summer, and you've looked at it already. So hopefully that's quite useful.